Hello, I'm finally back and giving you a midweek encouragement. Um, no good excuse for why I haven't done any. I've just been other things on my mind and other things to do, and that's what I've been doing. But it's good to be back, and hopefully I'm back for good and not taking more time off. But I do enjoy doing this, and I hope you enjoy listening to me do this. I try not to do this just to hear myself talk. Anyway, the background of this midweek encouragement actually was from a post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago that I saw, and the heading was, if I remember correctly, God can still use you even after divorce. And it was about the life and ministry of a man by the name of Charles Weigle, and I couldn't be mispronouncing his last name. Waggle, Weigle. Anyway, it is one of the few books that I got from my father-in-law was this one, and it is a compilation of sermons by Charles Weigle. I don't know. He died in 1966, but my father-in-law went to Tennessee Temple, and Tennessee Temple actually built a building, a music building, that was named the Weigle Building. And Charles actually had an apartment built in that building, and he lived there when during his final years of life. I don't think he moved in till in his 90s, and he died at 95. So he wasn't there long, but he ministered at Tennessee Temple for over 10, 15 years in the 50s and early 60s. But he's a fascinating man, and he wrote one of my wife's favorite songs, and it's a song that you know, and if you know the name, you've already thought of if you knew Charles and knew his name and recognized his name, you probably already know what song I'm talking about. But it's a song called "No One Ever Cared for Me Like Jesus," and the story on Facebook tells about how his wife up and left him. Now on Facebook, the story was that he came home from a series of evangelistic services that he was doing, and there was a note from his wife saying basically, "I can't live the life that you live. It is not for me, and I want to go to where there's brighter lights and more fun," essentially. Now, in the book that I just showed you, it has a little bit of his history, and it was a book put out by people that knew him well. And the story in there was that he was home at the time, and she came to him and said, I've got to leave. I can't live with you anymore." And he actually took her to the train station. They were living down in Florida, and she took a train to California. And as the story in both versions, he ends up at the end of a pier in the Biscayne Bay, and watching the tide go in and out, and contemplating just giving up on life totally. It never says suicide, but all the words there is sort of talking about that. You know, very seldom is a Christian's life full of just up and just blessing upon blessing upon blessing. There are times of hurt and persecution and frustration and disappointment. And there are even times of contemplation of suicide. Charles went through a whole lot, including the loss of his first wife, who just walked out on him and took their only child with him, a daughter. Both story goes on to say that he met her again in California. She was just rejoicing in the life of sin that she was living, and it was at that point that he realized that there wasn't going to be any reconciliation without a change of heart. And there was no reconciliation. God never changed her heart so that there could be reconciliation. But on her deathbed, she is said to have told her daughter who was there that go find Charlie, her daddy, and ask him to pray for her because she really messed up her life. Now, whether that was a confession that brought her back in the good graces of God, only God knows. But Charlie went on to be used of God in spite of his life not being perfect, and in spite of things that happened in his life that many would say disqualified him from ministry. He went on to be used of God. His wife died early. Now, I don't know whether he married the second time after she was gone. I don't know all those things. All I know is that God wasn't done with him, and God still used him. And there are things in your life that you're ashamed of. There are things in my life that I'm ashamed of. But you got to give them to God and say to him, God, what can I go? What can I do? Where can I go from here? How can I still be used by you? If you're still here, he still wants to use you. You just have to have a willing and gracious heart that says, here I am, use me. But he wrote these words, and it means a lot more when you realize what he went through. And he had this song in his pocket at a series of evangelistic meetings, and the leader of the music, Rita Haver, another name that I always struggle with, but he's well known with those of you that have been to Winona Lake. He was part of the Winona Lake and part of the ministry there, and greatly used by God as well. But anyway, he asked Charles if he had a song that he wanted to sing. He asked him just to come and share in a song, and he happened to have this song written down in his pocket, music and all, with multiple copies. He actually gave one to the organist to accompany him. And he sang these words for the very first time publicly in that meeting. And it moved the congregation, and it still moves people today. It says this: I would love to tell you what I think of Jesus, since I found in him a friend so strong and true. I would tell you how he changed my life completely. He did something else that no There's no other friend so kind as he. No one else could take the sin and darkness from me. Oh, how much he cared for me. All my life was full of sin when Jesus found me. All my heart was full of misery and woe. Jesus placed his strong and loving arms around me, and he led me in the way I ought to go. No one ever cared for me like Jesus. There's no other friend so kind as he. No one else could take the sin and darkness from me. Oh, how much he cared for me. Every day he comes to me with new assurance. More and more I understand his words of love. But I'll never know just why he came to save me, till someday I see his blessed face above. No one ever cared for me like Jesus. There's no other friend so kind as he. No one else could take the sin and darkness from me. Oh, how much he cares for me. Jesus cares about the situation you're in. Charles did remarry. He did find a second wife. And I don't know how long it was before he started writing again. It was a number of years before he wrote this song. But God richly used him in spite of all the things that Satan sent his way to get him off track. God wrapped his arms around him and let him know he was loved. God loves you. God loves me. That's an awesome concept. I don't understand it because I fail him. You fail him. And yet, while I was still a sinner, Christ died for me. He loves beyond all measure. And I hope you take these words and forgetting what is behind, pressing forward to what is ahead, to be used by God while you're here. While you're here, he's not done with you. He's still got things for you to do. Go get busy for God. Love you. If you come Sunday, we'll sing that song as an opening song. God bless.